Good morning, students. So now today we will continue further. We are going to see how the Mauryan Empire was ruled. Okay, how was it ruled? So first and foremost, after Chandragupta's expansion, the Mauryan Empire was huge. Last time you wrote the answer, right? Who expanded the Mauryan Empire the most? And you wrote the answer
Yes.
Chandragupta Maurya. So it was only part of, the southern tip that is part of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and this was which one? Which Ashoka captured later? It is Kalinga. Okay, Kalinga,
Ma'am, what
Battle of
is the
Kalinga.
meaning of expansion?
Expansion means to increase the territory, to expand, to become big. The territories became big. Okay, is it fine? So when the empire became huge, there were different cities and different parts of his empire. Correct. Now, can you see after taking up the territories from Seleucus Nicator, right from Afghanistan to southern tip of India, entire India and the subcontinent was under his control. So to control such a huge empire, it is going to take him lot of trouble. It is going to take him lot of planning, and yet he managed it efficiently. So let's see what did he do. Okay, different trade must have been happening in different areas. So if you see this part of India, the southern part of India, if the ports that were trading over here, they would be trading in spices. If the trade was happening in this corner, the main items of trade would have been horses. Correct. If it was happening, the trade was happening on this, it would have been some of the goods which were brought from China or that side. So every part of India was having a different kind of trade. Different items were traded. In the village areas, people must be farming and herding. So trading was one activity for people who lived in towns and cities. But for people who lived in villages, what they must be doing? They must have been farming and they must have been herding. Herding means rearing animals. Okay. In the forest areas, the tribal must be hunting and gathering. So there were also tribals who were living in the forest. Yes, what they must have been doing, they must be hunting animals for their livelihood, or they must be collecting things from the forest so that they can exchange it with somebody, or they can sell it in the market and buy new things for themselves. Okay, so different activities were happening throughout his empire. One was trading, one was agriculture, one was animal herding, one was hunting and gathering. Okay, so different people were engaged in different work. The empire was so huge that in different areas, people must be speaking different languages and wearing different clothes. Correct? You saw his empire here. Yes, which is the state here? Gujarat. Okay. And below that is
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra. And here it is Karnataka, right? Here it is Bengal. So people of different places have different languages that they speak. They have different kind of clothes that they wear. Correct? And they have different customs and traditions also. They have different types of food, they have different types of festivals that they celebrate. Correct. So in his empire, in this huge empire, there were different people doing different occupation. They had different traditions, they had different customs, they spoke different language. And just imagine, the emperor had to manage all this. He had to learn how to administer this very carefully. Okay, so now first difference, did you see that we are not calling this as Mauryan kingdom, we are calling this as Mauryan empire. So can you think what can be the difference between a kingdom and an empire? Any idea? Earlier when we were talking of the Janapadas and Mahajanapadas, we were referring to them as kingdoms only. We were not calling them empires. But when the Mauryan dynasty established themselves and they took over all the Mahajanapadas and they took over other territories and they took over practically whole of India, we are now calling it empire. So what is the difference between kingdom and
I
empire?
think the kingdom means in small area,
Yes.
and empire means in huge quantity or huge area.
Yes. Empire is a very huge territory, whereas kingdom may be a smaller area. Okay. So as they are bigger, they need, okay. Now empires are much much bigger than kingdoms. That is what we saw, right? Just having, if you see this very first map here, this was the place, right? This was Magadha. This was the only Mahajanapada that Mauryas, that earlier Nandas were ruling, and when Chandragupta took over, it was only this part. Then they took all these other Mahajanapadas and all the other territories. So now see how much big their territory has become. So it is now called what? It is called an empire. So if you have to manage an empire, obviously you will need more people to work, more people to manage your armies. As soldiers, you need to keep the things working smoothly. Okay, and that is a huge responsibility for a king. Correct? Do you accept it? That managing a small kingdom is a okay work as compared to a big empire that somebody has to manage. See, like for example, if I take the example, let's take, class monitor, right? Class monitor is going to manage only what? His class, but the principal is going to manage whole school. So see, there's a difference, right? And when the principal has to manage the whole school, he has to, or he or she has to take so many things into consideration. Correct? He has to see how other teachers are working, how the students are behaving, are all the facilities available, okay, are the students happy, are the teachers working properly. So they have to see so many things, right? So same way, when the kingdom is now has expanded to an empire, the king had to take care of so many things. So what are those things? As the Mauryan Empire was even larger than what India is today, you can imagine how different things must be in different places. So you saw, right? It had expanded right up to Afghanistan. So today's present day Pakistan, present day Afghanistan was also under the control of Mauryas. So it was a huge area. Now, territory wise, it has become even bigger than India. See this again, this map. Okay. Only little bit part of Jammu and Kashmir above, little bit tip of southern India and Kalinga was not under was not under Mauryan control. But later, by the time of Ashoka, even Kalinga came under their control. So now, if you compare the size, isn't what the territory they are ruling even bigger than what India is? Yes. Is it bigger than what India is? Yes. See, it is expanded towards the left side. So whatever Indian part was not under their control, much more part outside India was their control. So if you take the total territory, it was bigger than the what our country is today. Okay. So though there was a capital city, yes, capital city was which city? Patliputra. What is its present name? Currently, it is known as Patna, correct. It is currently known as Patna. Okay. Lot of other cities were set up to control neighboring areas. So just having one capital city was not enough. So number of other cities were also set up to take control of the neighboring areas. Okay, then what else was required? A lot of people, a lot of officers must have been required to collect the taxes and also to maintain law and order. So the officers were required for collecting taxes and they were also required for maintaining law and order. Then, are these officers doing correct work? Are they doing proper work? Are they working regularly without making mistakes? To check that, there must have been another set of people, right? Those who are keeping a track of the working of these officers. So they may be the supervisors or the heads, right? And on top of that was who? On top of that was the boss. And who was the boss? The emperor, right? Like in your school, you have above the monitor is the teacher, above the teacher is the supervisor or coordinator, and above that is
Principal.
principal, right? So same way the Mauryan Empire had lot of people who took care whether the work was done properly or no. Okay, other than that, to earn money, to bring in the economy, who all was contributing? Farmers were there, craftsmen were there. You know who are craftsmen? Craftsmen are people who do skilled work, like people who are doing weaving or who are making statues of from iron or even from clay. People who did some work which showed artistic skill were called as craftsmen. Okay, so they All were earning money, and when you're earning money, when you're earning a livelihood, you also have to pay a tax. Okay, correct? So we had already seen in the previous period that people living in sorry, first and foremost, the farmers who were working in their farm, they used to give certain percentage of their crop to the king as tax, right? The king would fix up certain amount, maybe 10% or 20% of the total produce, and that amount was given as tax. The tribals were doing what? They were giving as tax, whatever they got from the forest. So maybe animal meat after they hunted some animal, or the timber or the wood that they cut from the forest, or the honey or the wax that they obtained from the forest, that they gave to the kings as tax. Okay, even they provided wild elephants so that they could be trained, those elephants could be trained to fight in the war. Okay, and craftsmen, what did they do? Did they give any money? What kind of taxes they paid?
They work for the king for years.
Correct. They work for the king for some specific amount of time to pay the tax. Another set of people that the Mauryan kings required were spies. You know who are spies? ज्याला आपण गुप्तहेर म्हणतो मराठीमध्ये. Who are those spies? What work do they do? They secretly find out the movements of the enemy, or they find out what's happening in the kingdom. If anyone is talking about the king, good things about the king, bad things about the king, they report that to the king. So when we are interacting with spies, we will not realize they are spies. We will just talk to them like they are normal human beings, but they are originally spies. They are working, they just look like one of us. They just look like one farmer, or they may take up a get up of some tribal, and we may think that they are some common people like us, and we may land up talking to them, but actually they are providing information to the king. Secretly they are providing information to the king. So spies must have been needed. Otherwise, how would the king know for sure what was going on in different parts of the kingdom? Correct? No, it was a huge empire. So if Chandragupta Maurya was ruling from Patna, that is Patliputra, how does he know what is happening throughout the country? He has to have people who are giving him information, right? So spies were the people who gave him secret information. They honest information, but taken out very secretly. Nobody will realize that. And without the technology, just imagine all this without the technology. Did Chandragupta Maurya have WhatsApp? Did he have Facebook, Messenger,
No.
telephone, emails? Nothing. But yet he knew what was happening in his kingdom, and that was because of his spy system. Okay, so without any technological help, also, he was managing his kingdom very well. Okay, so now think and discuss, because this we will discuss and then move further, because this answer is there as homework in the worksheet. Yes, who will answer? Hmm.
How are empires different from kingdoms?
Hmm.
Empires are larger than kingdoms.
Hmm.
They were protected by big armies.
Okay, and you have to mention that kingdoms may be smaller areas. Okay, so if it's a
Okay.
3 mark answer, right, you will have to make 3 points. So, right, empires are larger areas. Then what point you wrote? Second point, what you told?
They were protected by the big armies.
Big armies were required to protect them, and kingdoms were smaller as compared to the empires. And empires extended, at times, empires even extended to different states, right? So the people
Yes.
living in those places would also be having different lifestyle. Okay. Then next, what did the king expect from the forest people? The king must have expected things like timber, honey, wax, okay, from the people who were living in the forest. And what do these people work as? The forest people, what work do they do?
Hunter gatherers.
Yes, they were hunters and gatherers. Okay. Now, think and tell me. The king had special servants to taste the food he ate. Why do you think this was done?
The king had a special servants to taste the food he ate. Why do you think this was done? Yes, this can be done because anyone could think that to kill him, so he will be scared or anything.
Yes, yes.
like that.
Because he was
That someone had mixed the poison in that food or
correct, correct.
trying
So
to kill him.
yes, somebody may try to kill the king because once the king has, you see, Chandragupta Maurya, for example, had so much territories under his control. He was a huge, he had a huge empire. He had become a very good emperor. So he had a lot of good qualities also. There was Chanakya was helping him. So there may be some people, who may be jealous of him. They did not like his work. They thought that he is overpowering others. So they may try to kill him through his uh, through the food that he ate. People may have different views about him. So, in that process, they may try to kill him. So, obviously, in order to avoid that, there were special people or servants appointed to taste the food. Like, have you seen that movie Bahubali? In that also, it is shown. They were showing, right, in the
Yes,
in the court.
yes,
Yes, in the court, the king asked the soldier to come and eat whatever was even in that movie, Ashoka, one Hindi movie is there. That also it is shown. So it means that the kings took extra care to keep themselves safe from anyone. They did not trust anyone blindly. Okay, is this clear? Fine. Have you understood? So now time is up. We'll continue with this later.
If you like our videos, do share them and subscribe to our channel. If you want awesome quizzes, write to us. Keep watching and keep learning with Walnut.